Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on My Workbench, more leather. This is, I don't know if you remember back ways, but I received this leather from Montana Leather. This is their pre-dyed Vegtan leather, and it's in turquoise. It's Vaqueta leather, and I've got just kind of a fun little project I'm going to be working on today. And I've also got, I don't remember exactly where I came up with this buckle set, but it's a three-piece buckle set, a nice flower design on it. We're gonna be making a belt with that leather and this, and just kind of a fun project. I had somebody recently say, you don't have any very feminine belts, and I tell you, out of the belts I have, I've run probably someplace about a third of the belts are purchased by ladies. So I don't know where that comes from, but I thought, you know what? I have a flower buckle and I'm going to do some tooling on this. I thought maybe you'd enjoy following along today. I appreciate you taking time. Let's get over here on the workbench and get started on this project. All right, to get started, I took the leather and I stripped off a piece that's 1.5 inches wide, and then I pulled it through my splitter to get down to about a 4-ounce piece. And then I've got my sapichi here on the back, and I did similar to it, but I cut it down to 6 ounces. So I've got 10 ounces of leather here, which I think will be really nice. It'll also fit nicely in the tip. It's got a slot here for that. So the next thing I need to do is get it cut to length. So next I'm going to set up on my contact adhesive, and I will get these layered up. Once we get it layered up, I'm going to set up my tooling pattern on here. And this is a belt that does not need sewing. That was the other thing. I find it kind of funny, but I guess everybody's got their own opinion. But people felt that the sewn belt looked more masculine than an unsewn belt. So this one here is going to be tooled, and there won't be any sewing on that. So this should kind of go along fairly quickly here. The contact adhesive is tacky, but doesn't come off on your fingers. And I'm going to line this, and I always have the finished side down, just the way it works for me. Get this lined up on here. Put a little bend where the buckle goes. Now we'll just layer this on here. I like the 2-layer belt. I've said it before, but I like the 2-layer belt. It allows me to have a finished side on both sides. I think it makes a more professional looking belt. A lot of times the liner, I go with like a 3 or 4 ounce on that and the thicker on the front, but I happen to find myself out of thinner lining leather that's natural, and I want to use natural on the inside here. I guess I could have used brown. I have got some brown that's that weight. All right. Looks pretty good. take it over and give a little bit of a sanding, make sure my edges are matched up on my sander burnisher. I've got quite a bit of black on here, and I want to keep my edges as clean as possible, so I'm going to clean this up some. They do make a crepe conditioner that will clean this better. I need to get one of those. I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to use this to get some of the black worn off of there. And now I can get this sanded up here a little bit. Next, I need to get this cut to finished length. I'll start here on my buckle end here with my round strap end punch. I get questions on this BHT punch from time to time. I bought this from Eric Landwerlen at Landwerlen Leather out of Indianapolis. It's Amish made in the United States. To line up my English point, I find it best to find the center here with my wing dividers, and if the two spots are separated, that's totally fine as well. And then I just line up my point between those two spots, and then the tails here equally spaced. There we go. Now, this tip is going to get a final shaping when we put the three-piece buckle on here. But for laying out for my tooling and everything, I've started here on this direction. All right, so we're cut to length. The sanding is done. And we're ready to case this. And I don't know that I need a bunch of casing on it, but we'll get some water in it here and see how it does. When it comes to casing, it's interesting. There's a lot of different schools to thought on that. When I took the floral carving and tooling class with Don Gonzalez, someone was asking him about soaking it, and he says, by all means, you can soak it if you want. And he said, then sometime next week we could start tooling it. So, you know, obviously, I think it depends a lot on what you're tooling and how long it's going to take to tool, how much moisture that you need in it. And I also think it has some to do with the density of the leather. Not all leather is the same. Some is denser than others. So his idea was to add a little bit of moisture to it. We used just sponges. That may have been convenience instead of having 20 squirt bottles in the room. But he said add a little bit of moisture to it, and he would do it over a period of time. So I'm going to add moisture to this. I'll let this sit for 4 or 5 minutes to kind of equal in the leather here a little bit. Then I probably will add just a little bit more moisture to it. And then when the leather starts to return to its original color, then I'll start the tooling. And he did say that if it's a large piece that you're doing and you're going to spend hours on it, that you can start with more moisture in it, and it'll be longer before you have to get a sponge out and add a little bit of moisture to it. But I find for myself it's easier to just kind of add moisture as you go. So I don't think this is going to take a lot of time to tool. So I'll be right back. All right, so now we're ready for the tooling part. And this is going to be the tip that goes on the belt. It'll go like this. And I'm going to put a mark slightly back from where that begins. And that's only important for the fact that I just want to make sure that I create my pattern started here to where the first one is tucked underneath of the edge here. I don't want to see it stop. So I'll just start here and create our little crease here that we're going to follow with my tooling. When I do this, I try to keep my wing divider set at the same angle so that I keep the same distance from the edge. And I don't know why I'm going around the bottom down here. I'm not sure I'll tool that. It used to be I would try to hold it up here. And when you do that, it tends to want to slip off. So if I get this set at the same angle and hold it that way, it seems like that's what works best for me. And I don't put the round over edge on it until after. Once again, I want to make sure I got plenty of leather there to hold the wing divider as I cruise down through here. All right. I put my first stamp here, and then I transferred that line over here. The way I did that was I put my first stamp tool there, and then it's butted up against the shaft of the tool. I'll come over here, and I will make sure that I'm butted against the shaft of the tool and on this outside edge, like that. The reason why I do that is I really feel that if, when you got to this tip here, if you had, say, a full stamp and then half of a stamp, I think that's going to be really obvious against this tip. Maybe I'm picking it apart here, but I think that that would be a problem. It'd be a problem for me anyway. And so I want us to make sure I start off a line. Now, if you look, as much as I try to make them even, there's some that are closer together. These two are closer together than, say, this one. And so you're going to have some variation there. And I think we get down in the belt, I'm not sure that it's going to be so obvious as it would be here at the tip. And when I make my impression, I try to, I can always deepen it, but if you go too far, it doesn't look good to have this little sunburst way down in there. So I'll kind of work my way into how deep the impression is. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do around the camera here. And if you wanted to work both sides and occasionally check your alignment, you could do that. And then if you're off a little bit, you could start to cheat it one way or the other to bring that back in line. Let me catch up here with these two and I'll show you what I mean. So there's that impression there. I'll work towards the tip here. Got that one kind of close to the edge. Luckily, I think I'll be cutting almost every bit of that off, if not all of it. Maybe someone's got a tip for how to better space these side by side. So I'm going to continue along here and I'll come back when I've got the tooling finished. So I finished the stamping It's funny in this light, this looks more blue than turquoise, but it's definitely a green turquoise. And so the next step is to put a resist on here because I'm going to antique this. I think I'm going to use black antiquing on here to highlight this area. And I'm going to go ahead and put the resist on the back in case I get a little bit messy with the antiquing. I want to keep it off of this edge and keep that clean. So I'll put resist on both faces of this. I'll use Resin, and then when that's dry, we'll come back and I'll put my antiquing glaze on here. I've said it before, make sure you apply it, get it on there even, because the streakiness will not go away later. And I want to make sure I get it on there down in each of these little shells. I guess that's kind of what this tool mimics, is like a shell. All right, so the resist has dried. Next we're going to apply some of the antique finish here, and I've decided to go with black. And I'm going to work to apply this primarily on the front here is my goal. And once I have it as evenly applied as I can get it here, I'm going to let this sit for probably 4 or 5 minutes. So I'm getting some on the edge for sure. And after that, I will buff off everything that I can get that's not down in the design. I said earlier I was trying to keep it off the sides. I've not done as good a job. If the sides end up getting stained and it doesn't want to sand out, I'll just go with a contrasting color, such as black or something like that, on the edges of the belt. So let's let this set up and we'll come back when we're ready to buff it off. Let's give this a test and see how it's looking. Just going to kind of wipe just long ways, even pressure here. You have to be careful not to. One thing about it, you want to be careful to try not to wipe too much out of in the detail. And if you want to leave more color behind, if you don't put the resist on, it will change the color of the turquoise some, but it will help it to hold in the details a little bit better. Okay. Let's let that dry now for probably an hour or two, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next step on it here. Here we are. The Resin is dried. I can see one little flaw in the hide here that's highlighted. It's not unusual to have some types of scars in the leather, and obviously when you put antiquing on there, if there's anything that's going to catch it, it'll find it. The back, I ended up when I put the clear coat on, I was not thinking. Where have I heard that before? But I put it on the front first and then went to the back. That was wrong because I picked up a little bit of turquoise dye and went to the natural back with it, and it was stained. So I sanded it all, the back of it, after the Resin dried. I applied dye to that,
and then I have since sealed it with Resin. So the back is not natural. I don't have a problem with it. I ended up using the golden brown dye. So the next step is going to be to work on these edges here. And I'm going to use my Ron's number 3 edger on here. The one thing I might have to do is I might have to futz some with this edge to get it the way I want. I guess the good thing is this belt is just going to be put on the sales rack. If no one likes it, then it stays there. So when I get done burnishing it, I'll probably end up using the golden brown dye that I have on the back on the edges. And that's probably what's going to look the best with this combination at this point. I don't want to add another color, even though I guess you could argue that if I use black, that it will just be bringing out the highlights that are in here. Now that I've got it rounded over, I'll do some finish sanding here because I've already got the contour on it. And then I will burnish it. And then I'm going to take a look and see what color is going to look best. Right now, looking at this, I'm thinking it may be black because I don't think the golden brown will bring these colors back in together. So I'm going to have to be careful using black that I don't have it creep onto the front. The thing I've got going for me is the front has been sealed with Resin. So that'll help keep the dye from wanting to wick into that top surface. As you can see here, we've got the top burnish completed. The face, if you remember, it started off as turquoise with a resist and then the black antique. And the reason why I'm going through all that is I toyed with the idea of doing the edges black, and there's a lot of people that's how they do their belts. They edge paint them a lot of times, but I've tried that and it's not really my thing. And there's plenty of black left here on the front of the turquoise. So where I'm going with that is I'm going to go safe. I'm going to put the same color as the back on the edge here, focusing mainly on this unfinished part of leather here and staying away from here. If I get some up in here, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but I think that's the safe answer here. So I'll get that out and do that. Just checking to make sure I don't have any on there. And I'm just going to catch this edge here. I think that's the right answer. Let me know if somebody else feels like they would do differently. But at this point, I'm concerned about getting black on the front somehow and having that affect the look that have been working towards on this project. And once this dye is dried, I'll use Resin just on the edges here, and then we'll be ready to mount the hardware and get the adjustment holes put in. So believe it or not, we're getting close to done here. I'll keep playing here on this edge. About halfway done anyway, and then I'll come back when we are ready to mount hardware. Hopefully that goes smoother than this process has been so far. It really just started off with not thinking about that turquoise color and having an effect on the back. I guess you could put it in a couple places. If I had used brown leather on the back to begin with, which I considered doing, then I wouldn't have been affected by that, because a little bit of a green on that, or turquoise dye on the brown, or the brown on the turquoise probably would not have mattered. All right, so we'll be back here in just a few minutes. Well, a few minutes for you. We're ready here. The belt is finished, ready for the hardware. I think the edges came out good. I think that was a good decision not to introduce another color here. And now we're ready to mount the hardware. And my experience is that on an 1.5" piece of hardware, let me flatten this out just a little bit here. Just a little bit of compression there. That the inside here, by the time you take off an 1/8 inch on each side, that equals 1/4 inch. So 1 1/4" English point should fit nicely inside of that tip. So here's my 1 1/4" English point, and I'm just going to set it just inside the tip I cut with the 1.5", trying to make it equal spaced around, especially on this back. If you don't get these back wings set right, it'll want to tip one way or the other. All right. The next thing is to figure out how far that tip is going to go inside there, or the end of the belt is going to go inside. It looks like it'll be about like that. So I'll mark one side here, like that. So I just need to extend this about 7/16 of an inch. And I marked one side because I'll use my square, set it on here, to transfer that line to this other side. To me, that's better than off of here. I guess that's assuming that's square, and that looks square on the back. Yeah, I'm sure that's square. A little bit hard to tell with this detail. All right. Someone's probably got a better way to do this, and I'm all ears. That I ended up about 10.5 ounces, and 10 ounces fits in here, so I'll just compress this a little bit. And on others, I've had some where it's kind of open on the top here. Well, this one's closed, so it obviously, if there's any friction here, it can be difficult to fit it. I'll give it a first dry fit here. Okay, so I got the width good. It looks like I need to take a little bit off the tip because it's catching here just before. I could whittle away at that, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this English point tip back just that same distance. Get it to where it looks like I'm even. Try again here. A little more. There we go. Got a little bit of a nick there I need to take. There we go. Then come around here and mark the center of those two holes. And I've used these set screws before and tried to just compress the leather and end up stripping out the hole. So I don't do that anymore. So what I'll do is I'll take my rotary punch and I'm going to make a small hole here on both of these. And if you notice, I put it offset slightly from that mark so that it holds it tight up against the shoulders here. All right, these little bitty screws just about got away from me, and those are flathead. I received another piece of hardware from Tandy. I guess I need to reach out to them. The hardware is missing the screws. I don't know if I picked it up at a store and maybe someone had been into it or returned it or who knows what, but the screws were missing and I didn't notice it till I got down to the end. So I'm sure it's not an unusual thing. Maybe Tandy has some of those screws at their location. I can get. Come on. The ones with the Phillips head on the end here, I think, are a little easier to work with. Maybe the hardware was sitting at an angle when I was pushing on it. Let me close the garage door. Someone's mowing. I put a little dab of clear fingernail polish on each of those. I guess my thoughts are that if I do that, they can't back out. I can't imagine it happening. But the other thing is, I feel like it helps protect this area here from wearing on the other hardware. All right. I think it looks pretty good. Let's put this side on now. This should be the easy side, right? All right, so I set my buckles in 3.5 inches. I do have to keep in mind, this is a big loop. And I want to make sure that when I get this folded over, I got enough room between those screws for that. But I think 3.5 is going to be good. Let's find out. 3.5 is the center. And I use my wing dividers to make sure I know where the center is. And then if you tighten it up just a little bit here, make it narrower, then you'll make a set of parallel lines. And my experience is that helps to line up this punch. It's called a bag punch. Okay. Now I need to make my spots, Chicago screws. Okay, we're getting there. Which way does that go? All right. So if this comes through, I'm assuming that it needs to be like that. Yeah, I think so. It needs to be like that on there. So that means concave towards the tip. We'll slide that on. And then our buckle on here as well. And you know, I started off by saying that I was told I didn't have feminine belts, and so I made this, and I kind of feel it's that way, but I tell you, a lot of the Western saddles and such have floral themes to them, so you know, maybe this would be for a cowboy instead of a cowgirl. I guess I'll let anybody that wants it buy it. Let's just finish mounting this hardware here. That one up there. I've had some of these Chicago screws that I think are not threaded to the bottom in this last batch. If it turns out I use it on a thick piece of leather, then you don't notice it. But if it's, you know, just the right size, well, if it doesn't tighten down, it's pretty noticeable. That's better. Okay, so the next step is to create my adjustment holes here. I typically either do 5 or 7 holes. And I'm going to make this one with 7 holes to give a little bit more room for adjustment. I know sometimes, depending on the jeans and where they ride on the person, it could be a little longer if it's down on the hips more. So let me mark these spots, starting off as a 38. 37, 36, we'll do a 35, 39. We'll go ahead and do 40. I don't know how well that would fit with where the loop's at here. Find the center. Do our fit and see how it is. Well, I have to say, I think it's really a pretty belt. What's missing? There's something missing. Oh, yeah. There we go. I think it's really pretty. Let's turn the camera around here and we'll wrap up. Well, there you go. I think it came out really pretty nice. I think this just shows you wherever you come up against challenges, doesn't matter if it's in Leathercraft or at work, just keep plugging ahead. More than likely you'll get there. But I think it really came out beautiful. I wanted to take a second and thank everybody. A few videos ago, I asked you to check and make sure you were subscribed, and I had a little uptick there, so there was probably a few people there that were unsubscribed. And Rick even reached out to me. He's the one that said that he was unsubscribed, and he reached out to me. He said since then he's been unsubscribed 2 times. That's not happening from my end. But anyway, I appreciate you taking time to watch my video today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I hope you have a great day.